Welcome to the Waterfowl East podcast. We're going to do something a little different here tonight. We're not going to talk as much about waterfowl. We've got a couple deer hunters with me, a couple local big buck hunters here with me. We got
Jason McLean.
Mr. Jason
Scott
McLean,
Wilson.
Mr. Scott Wilson, my brother Scott Wilson. Welcome, boys.
Awesome.
Good to see you.
Good to be seen.
Yeah, I feel that way.
Yeah. Yeah, here we are. I can't wait. Talk about deer hunting.
Oh, you love deer hunting.
I love to hunt deer.
Yeah.
You know, I was thinking when we were over on the island, we were over at Grand Manan Island hunting here a few weeks ago, and I rounded the turn where I hit that deer that morning, and I thought to I was telling the boys
in Grand Manan?
in Grand Manan, yeah. And I was telling the boys, I said, when I left the camp that morning, I told Scott, I said, if I could hit a deer with the car on the way to the stand, I'd be just as happy. And sure as shit, not even 10 minutes down the road, smucked a deer, put it right over I had the Echo at that time. It's just like a friggin' jump, just like a ramp, put it right over the hood, right up over the back.
Yeah. I often think of that because that was the first time Bob ever went hunting with us. He sure got a full taste that day. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Bob, he's a duck hunter, okay? He's a duck hunter. You know, he's not a deer hunter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, how you been, boys? What have you been up to?
Good. Working away.
Yeah.
Keeping busy.
Yeah. Slinging potatoes.
No, haven't moved any of them for a while. It'll be probably March, April before we do any of that. But we working on equipment in the shop and figuring around that way, I guess.
I suppose that's what you're doing all winter, right?
Yeah. Oh, we got to go to the woods, cut some firewood. We're doing boundary lines here last little while too. You got enough boundary lines around. You kind of got to. I pick 2 or 3 days every year and do a little bit of it, just to kind of keep ahead of it. If you don't keep your boundary lines up, then all of a sudden you got a bunch of
you don't know where
you don't know where the heck they are, and then you got to hire someone to come do it, right? So
yeah,
nice that you can do that yourself because you've got a history of that, right?
Yep, yeah, it's not too bad. And a lot of the boundary lines I'm chasing too have been, there's old blazes and there's old ribbons and old remnants of some sort of line there, so you just basically following them and filling in the line between.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're running all your own boundary lines, GPS.
Yep. Well, not so much anymore like you could, but I'm just looking for sign. I'm looking for old pins. Like the one I did the other day, there was probably 5 or 6 pins along that one picketed line. Mm-hmm. So it was no problem. I was just filling in between. Yeah. So I just took a compass bearing on it and away I went. Nice
to have a break though, eh? Probably.
Yep. I like getting in the woods. It's nice.
Yeah, it's, and that's one of the things I like about my job is that if all I ever did was train retrievers for the purpose of hunting, like, I would love that job, and I do love that job, but I don't do it all year, right? I do most of my business is obedience or service dogs or, it's a pretty good mixture, so you don't ever, it's not monotonous in the sense that you're just, making the same, use Pierre Poilievre's verbiage, widget every day, all day long, standing at an assembly line. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but for me personally, it wouldn't be the greatest thing. So, yeah. What have you been up to, Scott?
Oh, relenting the deer season gone by, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dragging my heels around work.
Yeah.
Pounding on steel.
All kinds of cool things. You doing anything for the fishermen lately?
We do dredges for Clearwater, and they're quite successful. That's about it, though. We did look at doing some scallop drags one time, but it never really panned out.
No way?
No.
So you guys make like all kinds of, outside of making buckets and plows and stuff, you're also sort of doing custom work like that? Or it's 100% custom, is it?
Yeah, it's all custom. I mean, we get into some rock crushers for Komatsu, Downstate. The biggest thing we got going right now is 2 42-ton dump bodies for Duratray going to a diamond mine called Gaucho Kue up in the Northwest Territories.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. So they're going to put them on a truck on the ice road here in about a month and lug them up into the middle of nowhere to a whole civilization, a couple holes in the ground. If you got time, you should look it up. It's quite something how they set these mines up and dam the water up. And
what's it called again?
Gaucho Kue.
Gaucho Kue.
Yeah. Means big rabbit, I think, in Inuit.
Inuit?
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know they're going up across the ice roads.
Yeah. 42 tons each.
I'll tell you what, I'd have to think the guy driving that truck a little bit.
Yeah. So we've got a tight deadline to get them done and get them up there. And anyway, they've got a 5-inch thick rubber liner in them, so they're not a normal dump body with a steel bed in it. They've got this suspended rubber liner in it. Supposed to last longer, and they can replace it. And
On the inside of the bucket.
yeah, the whole bottom of the bucket is a suspended rubber liner. The
Really?
rubber liner's about, I think it's between 7 and 10 ton.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
That's some pile of rubber.
yeah. She's a big unit,
Okay.
hanging on big rubber cables.
Yeah.
No way. What always amazes me is like when you think of where we live, like it's very small here, right?
Oh, very small.
Very
yeah.
small. So when I think about that, I'm like, how the hell does somebody from, I'm not even going to try to say it, Large Rabbit Mine,
Yeah,
up in the Northwest Territories find out about Craig's? And that, I suppose,
so Ben Craig is a world traveler. He's beating on doors everywhere.
right?
All the time. I don't know how many days. There was one year, I think he told me that he was gone 255 nights.
Really?
Yeah.
That's sort of part of business. I mean, as well as I do, Jay, and basically you too, Scott. You got a big job there that, like, business-wise, you got to go do what you got to do and strike while the iron's hot.
Yeah.
And although there are some benefits, like being able to set your own schedule, like, in a way, you sort of don't.
No.
Like like I say, if the iron's hot, you got to strike then. And
Yeah.
if that's, you can't in the middle of October, Jason, be like, oh, well, I'm going to take 2 weeks off and go
Yeah.
south. Like, maybe you could if you had a big crew or wanted to pay people, but I mean, jeepers.
I don't know. Even then, I think you'd be pulling your hair out.
Yeah.
It'd be hard to be away and relax at that
Yep,
point, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's created quite a steel eating machine there. He's got 200 plus employees, so it takes a lot. Four locations.
So when you started, how many people were there?
Oh God, less than 100.
Yeah.
Way less than 100. Like would have been 60.
And I mean, at some point, they say that your business has got to grow, right?
Yeah.
You can't be stagnant. You should be in some way, shape, or form growing, or
Yep.
whatever that means. Like whether you're consuming less and keeping more, or whatever you're doing. So
Yeah.
certainly seems like he's trying. If he's got 200 people on the payroll, boys.
200 plus. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's got a 5th location that he's trying to open in Dallas. So
Well, that'd be a big one, I would think.
yeah.
That's when you lay your head down on the pillow at night. I suppose it's all relative, in comparison with the amount of employees that you have and to him at times. But, man, you think about how many families your business and making sure that it's successful.
Absolutely.
Depend
Yeah.
on, really, like if you look at it, I think the proper way, like they depend on you. The decisions you make are.
Well, it's Craig's is a pretty large staple to Carleton County. I mean, in particular, Heartland. You take, I think that plant has 120, 140. So you take those jobs out of Carleton County. Where do those people go? What do they do?
Well, and just Heartland in general.
Yeah.
There's a lot of jobs up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Much more so than here. Like our industrial park doesn't have much in it.
Yeah.
No big factories.
No.
So that's good. Been just messing around at work, boys? Taking her easy.
Well, like I said, dragging my heels around, a little bit of depression set in.
Yeah.
Yes.
I did that for a little while too, and I kind of said, "Oh, the heck with this."
Yeah,
I gave her a go.
Yeah.
I squeezed the trigger a few times, got a little excitement.
Yeah.
I don't care for that, Like I don't do well when the season ends. I mean that. Like,
I don't either.
I don't physically or mentally do well
Yeah.
when it's like, okay, legally you can't do that here anymore. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, okay, where can you do it?
Yeah.
Ramsey
Yeah.
Russell, when he was here this year, like that's what he does. He's the world's most purveyor in bird hunts, basically, and he's literally all over the world doing it. That's what he does. He brokers hunts, goes to Africa, England, You know, Argentina, Uruguay, Mexico, all over. He traveled all over Canada this year, ended up here, and spent some time here. But, you know, and a lot of people would think like, oh, that's the life. But you might want that life, but you really got to actually live and breathe that sport, right? Like, you really got to want to do it. And I think, like, with what you guys do, there's a lot of people that would assume that they really love to hunt and they really live and breathe it. But I'll tell you, if that was going to be a 12-month-a-year thing or a 10-month-a-year thing or even an 8-month-a-year thing, a lot of people probably might get tired of it or might just physically and mentally be tired of that.
Oh, for sure.
But I don't feel like the two people that are sitting across the table from me right now would. I think that you guys are basically trained killers and you like to hunt deer, and if you had an opportunity to do it 8 to 10 months a year, you would do it. And I don't think you'd get tired of it as long as you could travel a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Oh, if I could bounce around.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I completely understand the grind. You get a lot of people in a camp for a week and they think it's going to be a vacation, and about day 3 they're wore out.
Yeah.
Well, what Julian and I say is there's not many people that can actually roll.
No.
You know what I mean? Like with what I do, we're guiding 40 days straight. 40. And
Yeah, that's
other people do that other places. They're like, oh, well, we do it 60. And I'm like, okay, but you don't do it like us. It's a little different here. You actually get to sleep probably. You know, it's competitive all year here. We don't own any land. We don't lease anything.
Yeah.
It's you get your arse out of bed. It's first come, first serve with permission. And not many people can roll. You know what I mean? Like people get tired quick, you know.
Yeah, you'd be hard pressed to find someplace else that's comparable to here, I have to think.
Yeah.
Especially in the, down in the States, there's a lot of that country there. You probably got the only permission on that piece of property, where like
you have to have if you want to hunt. It's the public land is.
Yeah.
Well, most places public land you can't guide on it, but.
Yep.
And I mean, you'd have to get up early there, but. You wouldn't truly find a lot of people that can roll. Not saying we're the only ones, because we aren't.
No.
But the group of people is small.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it would be. Yeah, without a doubt.
And that goes for you guys too. Like you say, you got to have that mindset that when we go to the camp, like we're here as a tribe, like it used to be, to kill game.
Yeah.
And if you shoot a deer, then Jason has shot a deer.
Yep.
Everybody's
That's the way I
excited.
view it
That's
now.
the way we view our hunting.
I bet you do.
Yep.
Because there's got to be more to it, right?
Yep.
You have to love it, and you have to want to do it, and you have to enjoy the experience and the tradition and the culture behind it, And here, one of the things I've noticed about traveling is like the waterfowl culture in the Maritimes is coastal. You're not going to find barns full of old waterfowl gear in Carleton County.
No, that's right.
You're just not.
No. It's a relatively new sport here too.
You're right. Yeah.
Within our generation.
Yeah.
Yeah, you think when we grew up, like
That was the first bit.
Wasn't many guys around the country doing it.
Yeah. So, in that aspect, it is fairly new here. But you travel, like going to Graham Inn and sitting in some of those old blinds, like they've been there and either that blind or a blind before that just couldn't be fixed anymore.
Yep.
For like years.
Yeah.
We used to shoot ducks here in the light from the lighthouse kind of thing.
Yeah.
So how's your season been, boys? How did this season go?
Challenging.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How come?
Well, I mean, I am, and I know Jason is, we're kind of entering a little bit of a different phase for deer hunting for us. It's a little bit more on the teaching side and getting some family involved and makes it a little more challenging. I think we're getting a little bit older, changing our techniques a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah. So in that aspect, that brings up a good point, really. Like you were talking about getting family involved and, trying trying to teach some of the new generation how to do it properly, all your skills, techniques, ethics, things like that. How did you get started, Scott? Where did this whole outdoor journey begin for you?
Well, I mean, our grandfather is the one that lit the fire. Now, how we branched off the way we did, and I have no idea, but I mean, it was always deer for me. Listening to Gramp tell stories about deer hunting, and I don't think he was the world's greatest deer hunter. I think it was more out of necessity and population, and that he was a deer hunter, but that's what the adventure in it is what inspired me. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, we did branch off, and why I went to waterfowl. Good question.
Patience, probably.
Well, I don't know. I when people ask me, I just tell them I can't remember a time that I didn't want to hunt waterfowl.
Yeah, I don't remember a time where you didn't talk about it. So,
like, it wasn't like, oh, my dad took me all the time, and like rowing, and I just really almost didn't have a choice. Like, Dad did it a little bit when we were kids, but I remember in like grade 1, Miss Everett's class, like drawing little pictures. People in a field, big shot streams, tracer bullets shooting at geese in the air. Hieroglyphics on the wall of the classroom.
Yeah.
How do I make a living doing this?
Yeah.
What about you, Jay?
Oh, I think definitely from my father and his friends. I got lots of fond memories going up Camp up Tobic, and I'll tell you what, I was telling, of course we have this thing when we go to bed at night, the boys, Hunter and Will, especially Will, he always asks me, Dad, can you tell me a story? So I often tell him a story. I said, Dad, remember when I was young, I said, going up to the camp, and of course Phil and I think Herb and Dad and a bunch of the boys were all there, and we always used to cross the river. We canoe across the river, and it was a great adventure to go over in Blue Mountain. And we'd hike up over the hill and hunt for the day and take our lunch and cook out and, boil the kettle, did all the stuff that you read about in books. But we did that. That's how I grew up hunting.
Yeah.
And that's what created my interest in it. Anyway, stuff like that, that's where it kind of got started for me.
Right.
And, just being up in the camp and that camaraderie. And I felt very lucky because I was usually, a lot of times, I was the only kid that used to go and in my age. So anyway,
that wouldn't be a normal thing.
No,
back then.
It was not. None whatsoever. Like that,
them fellas was trying to get out of the house.
They were.
Yeah, they didn't want somebody that was going to be a liability with them.
That's right. And I was very thankful for Dad dragging me along and sort of, taking me to the woods. And I can remember seeing him shoot deer, and I was just so excited. Like, the first time I see him shoot one, like, I was just beyond it. Like, I don't even know how to explain that feeling or excitement, like it just, I still get it nowadays, right? And I'm glad I do. Anyway, even with someone else shooting that deer, but that's sort of where I got started. And, kind of everything that I learned and everything that I learned as I was growing up, I'm trying to teach my boys the same thing. So Hunter's into hunting. This is the second year. He's 13. And last year was his first year. And a lot of the things that we do, I'm trying to teach him the same way that Dad taught me, or that I learned from Philip, or learned from Herb, or learned from the boys, right? And you're kind of passing it all along, right? And that's how hunting is. You pass along what one generation learned to the next generation.
Yeah.
Anyway,
and you do it a lot of times through those stories.
You do. Yeah. And that creates almost like a mythological type thing for those kids too. Like they're thinking, Dad, they remember hunting these big bucks here and there, and being up in these particular woods and the big woods and stuff like that, and those stories. That's what tags them along, I feel. But
and when you're a kid, like you remember when you go on a hunt, you remember everything,
every single aspect,
single aspect.
Yeah.
Now, thank God for phones, because at times I'm like, people will tell a story and they'll be like, you remember that hunt? I'm like, not entirely.
Yeah.
Give me more details. Or when was that?
True.
And you talk about it and, oh, okay, yeah, now I remember that one. But when you're a kid, you remember everyone.
Yeah.
And what it smelled like.
Yeah.
And, where you were. And, you know, what the birds did or how the deer came out or what you saw. And I'm like, you know, now it's still those same things. Nature is still the same, but you don't see it like you do when you're a kid because you don't have access to that as readily as you do when you're an adult, right?
Right.
Or when
well, everything's new.
Yeah, when you get your driver's license, that's when things really change. Yeah. So, you know, obviously for us, Scott, like Gramp was a huge impact or a huge player in getting us outside and had us out lots. But
Oh, absolutely.
you know, like he never really took us deer hunting. He told stories about that.
And we lugged a rifle. And that was about it.
Yeah.
And he never ever wanted to shoot a deer because he knew how much work it was.
Yeah, we never shot at one even, you know. Or
He always told me Nana would be mad at us. Oh, I can't do that, Scott. Nana would be mad.
Oh, yeah, well, there you go. That's a story I don't remember, I guess. Yeah, we just used to shoot birds and stuff. But so, and again, we both sort of branched off in different directions that way, and you have a real big passion for deer hunting. So like do you remember anything that was like, man, this is the jam for me?
Nothing really in particular. I always wanted to stalk stuff.
Right.
I always liked the adventure of being in the woods.
Yeah.
I mean, I was always a kid down in the woods behind the house.
Yep.
Building the forts and trying to go a little bit farther. How far away can I get from the house before somebody comes looking for me?
What's over that next ridge?
What's over the next ridge? Yeah. What's down in by Macquarie Brook? Like,
yeah.
What's down in by the Simcox Road? Like, how far can I go here?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. We just, I think, you know, you read those books like Rivers of Yesterday and certainly Men of the Autumn Woods, and you think about like their life and how, you know, people always sought adventure because it wasn't as readily available, right? Everything you saw was in print most of the time, and you would read the story about it, and you would really get into that, and if the person was a good writer way back when, you could smell what the smells were like, and you could hear the leaves rustling, and you could imagine the deer coming up over the ridge and stuff, and people would travel and come here for that, and those guys all lived out at those camps, and you know, to us that's sort of foreign. Yeah, sort of. Mm-hmm. You guys still sort of have that culture and still
I do,
still foster that, and for you now, I mean, throughout your, we'll call it your hunting life or your outdoor career, so to speak, you change. You go through seasons, like literally and figuratively. So, like we talked a little bit about how you got into it. Do you remember when you shot your first deer, Jason?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I could take you right back and stand right in the exact same spot and show you right where the deer was standing. The whole works.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah. No, definitely.
I think I could too.
Yeah.
You want to tell me about that? I'd love to hear that story.
Oh, yeah. So when Scott and I, we both turned 16 the same year. And
it was 18.
Is it
we had to be 18.
18.
You sure?
18 at the time, yeah.
Yeah.
Gee.
Yeah, man. We had to be 18. I was going to mention that earlier.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy, I was thinking 16 all this time.
It changed the year that we turned 18 to 16.
To 16.
Yep, that's right. Okay, because that's right.
Yeah. So it would have been like 98, 99.
For deer and bear,
it
changed.
Yeah.
Moose, I still think you still have to be 18. Do you not?
Yeah, I believe you're right.
For moose, yeah.
For moose, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, so we hunted all fall. We never seen some deer, and one of my buddies shot one. Anyway, we knew there was a good buck around, and I was awful for a guy for a walk, and I'd take off for a big hike, and I said, I'm going to go for a hike tonight. So I cut her out of back and went across this field in the same spot we still hunt now, and I went across the field in angle. And of course, this is the last week of deer season, and the bucks are moving. They're running with their heads down, running around anyway. And I looked back across the field, just sort of, I don't know why, looked over my shoulder, and nowhere of a lie, there was a buck come out. He'd come out across the field, basically where I was going to go in the woods, and he was going to go in the woods where I was going to come in. And I don't know how the heck we never freaking met up, and how he never seen me, but he has head to the ground. I remember swinging around and saying, oh, I could see you antlers with my naked eye. And I said, that's a good buck. I said, I didn't care. The first deer, I'm going to shoot whatever's got antlers, right? Anyway, so I pulled on him and squeezed the trigger, and The deer turned and looked right over her shoulder the opposite way. Dust flew, and I said, "Holy smokes, I'm too high." Drop her a little lower.
You shot over top of it.
Shot right over top of him first shot. He looked right the other way. And I thought, oh, gee. So I dropped her down. Of course, I'm shooting a friggin' 35 Marlin with a friggin' old T-post scope. Like,
She was a unit.
Yep.
30 millimeter.
Yeah. Something like you'd find at the yard sale.
Yeah. About 150 yards, I figured, like right around there.
Yeah.
A pretty decent poke for that gun. And so I dropped her down a little bit and squeezed the trigger, and he piled her up right there. And I thought, holy smokes, I got him. Anyway, I was so excited. And I knew right at that point, the Dad and Herb, they were loading the truck up to head to Tampa, Tobic, go deer hunting for the night weekend. This was on a Thursday, last weekend of the season. And I said, gee, I better get that load to get him back over there. And I was so wound up. I grabbed a hold of that deer, and I drugged that clear across the field, probably 300 yards, down in the ditch, up over a bank, and loaded on the back of my Toyota Tacoma.
Yeah.
And I remember using I used a rope to get his head up over, and I stood on the back side and sort of lifted him up and pulled, backside and lift him up and pull type thing, eh? Right from the rack, anyway. And finally got on the back of the truck, and I beat her for the house. Never even gugged him. Anyway, got him back over, and we weighed that deer after I gugged it. It was 220 pounds. So how heavy was that when I was loading that? And like I was running on adrenaline.
Oh,
so I know I couldn't have did that now.
No question.
Way. Like that'd been like 200 and probably 260.
Adrenaline's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Eh? It just goes to show you how strong and powerful we actually are. It's not it's not about the body, it's about the mind.
Yeah.
A lot of times, right, when you're lifting something like that. Yeah.
Oh, I was so excited. That was a nice 8-point buck. That was my first deer. I was pretty pumped over that. Couldn't have got a better one. Like I've been happy with Spike, but anyway.
I'm pretty sure I have a picture of that downstairs.
I do too, yeah.
Yeah, probably do.
I remember that deer, yeah.
Yeah, it was a nice deer. That was my biggest deer for the longest time.
That was on your ground, eh?
Yep.
So that makes it even sweeter,
it is.
right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. We still hunting that spot. I sat right there with Hunter this year, eating that exact same field, watching the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of neat.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Big part of your history. What
Yep.
about you, Scott?
That would have been, we'd have been 18. That'd been when we were graduating, so 99, 2000. So my first year, our Uncle Chuck gave me his 32 special. She was freshly refinished, never put a bullet through her.
Yeah.
And I had a brand new box of bullets, and I went out to Eric Briggs's out by Briggs's Mill Falls. And I walked from Eric Briggs's, basically his house, clear over to Porter Hill and shot a doe. I broke through the woods, and there was an old pasture that was growing up, and the deer come running across the road, and I seen them running towards me, and they stopped about 100 yards, and I had a doe tag, and I emptied that gun on that deer, and it stood there looking at me. And I loaded 5 more rounds in it, and I proceeded to empty all 5 rounds at that deer, and she stood right there like a little sweetheart. And I put the remainder of what I had in that gun that hadn't fallen on the ground, and I said, well, I must be shooting below her, so I aimed higher, and I just absolutely peeled her right in the chest and dropped her right there. And I pretty near come out of my boots running over to get that. And I was about the same as Jason. I drugged that. I grabbed a hold of her by the ears and started dragging that up across that pasture. And that pasture, it's by Llewellyn's.
Yeah.
And I drug her up across that pasture to that road, and then went, why did I do that? Because my truck's about 2 kilometers in the opposite. The car's about 2 kilometers in the opposite direction. So I cut her back through the woods, got the car, drove around, and loaded her on the back of a Toyota Tercel.
Yeah. Like, and you think back on those days, and you think back on like that moment, eh? When you're just ranking shells. And it's almost like an out-of-body experience at that time, right?
Yeah.
You're like standing beside yourself watching a guy just rank shells out of a gun. It's just completely fucking Western.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's just shells flying, and you're looking at the deer, and you're basically looking at yourself shooting at the deer, not paying attention probably. You know, you fire that many shells. Like, you're firing them all in the same spot and missing every time, but you're just thinking to yourself, one of these bullets going to hit it, even though I'm
Oh,
pointing in the
yeah.
same.
Yeah.
You're just trying to cover the whole deer,
Yeah.
right? And not even hitting it. And like when I hear stories like that, I think to myself, imagine being that deer standing there going, zoom, 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 zoom,
Oh, yeah.
zoom, and going, well, he can't be shooting at me. That's not even close. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
That's like 4 feet over my back. That's like that moose I shot at that time. Holy shit.
I'll never forget it. All I could think about was, she's going to run away.
Yeah.
I got to shoot.
Yeah.
She's going to run away. Shoot. Shoot.
Yeah.
And before I knew it, I'd shot and I'd emptied the gun and I was still trying to shoot it. And then I was like, she's still standing there. Reload, dummy. So, then you're fumbling trying to get 32 special bullets in the side of that gun and racking them in, and
Yeah.
you fill her full and you empty it again. And she's still standing there. And it's like, holy frig, man. Okay. Let's tune her in here a little bit. Let's stop and think about what we're doing.
Yeah. 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 You would have to, at that moment, you must be sitting there going, holy shit. Like,
Oh, yeah.
is this thing even real? Like,
Yeah.
what's going on?
Yeah.
Where is there bullets, actually
Yeah.
bullets in this
Yeah.
gun? Like, where
Yeah.
am I even hitting?
Yeah.
Especially if there's not much behind it that you can see where they're even going. And at that point, it wouldn't matter unless you're shooting it in the feet. You wouldn't know, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're just Hail Marrying, right?
Yeah, I took that gun back to Chuck and I've never touched another one.
Yeah.
That was the end of me and lever guns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
32 special.
Had
Yeah.
a hate on for him ever since.
Yeah, hated them ever since, yeah. And so I was in the same boat. I never gutted that deer. Had no idea how to take care of it. And I remember you gutted my first deer because
Yeah.
you'd just done it.
Yeah, I did.
I took it over to your house and thought, well, I know Jason just did one, so
Yeah.
Randy be there. Here we go.
Yeah.
And so we took it up on the hill there and cleaned it out. And that was the first deer. That's how I learned how to gut a deer.
Yep.
Randy stood there and basically showed us.
Yep, he did. Yeah.
And times change, eh? Because obviously, you think about those days when you went up to the camp, and the camp was full of all those guys, and there was a big group
Oh,
of
yeah.
guys deer
Yeah.
hunting
Yeah.
or whatever, and like you guys are the ones that are going to be the purveyors of that now.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
That's right.
Because like even with the waterfowl mafia, I mean, people come and go. It's not they don't sort of back away for bad reasons. I mean, people just fade in and out of the sport because their life changes.
They get busy, yeah.
They have kids
change.
or start businesses or whatever. But certainly for some of us, this is life. And it's not that those other guys don't like it, but things change for them. And I mean, I don't myself ever see you fellas slacking, ever slowing down on the deer hunting. I don't.
Well, this was my slackest year, to be honest.
I mean,
Seriously.
even if it's a matter of, taking your kids out or working with your family to get them a deer,
Yeah.
you're still in it.
Yeah.
It might be different. It's just a different, part of your season, sort of thing.
Yeah.
That you're in. I mean, I guide most of the fall, and I'm not allowed to shoot. So for me, like, I can sit there, even when I can shoot, a lot of times my gun is there, but like, I just enjoy being out. I just enjoy hunting. Now, I'm not going to go sit in a field for nothing.
Yeah.
Like, if
no,
there's
that's
nothing
right.
there,
Yeah.
like, I want to give myself a chance.
Yep.
And don't get me wrong, I like to shoot them, but at the same time, like, when we went out with you guys, like, I never even got my gun out of the case. I was happy to sit there and watch everybody do their thing and I get to run my dog. That's a huge deal to me, and call at them and whatever. That's great. Like, shoot one once in a while, that's good. But to see all the kids and like, especially like you and Hanson that haven't been out forever.
Yeah, I get out on a token hunt.
Yeah.
A token hunty or pretty much.
Yeah.
I like to get out.
Yeah, it's fun.
Deer hunting's so solitary, right? Like, it's the exact opposite of what you described. Like, I put on 7,000 kilometers this year and never shot a deer.
Yeah.
I drove to Indiana and back, and was okay with not squeezing on a deer. We drove to Nova Scotia and back, and I was fine.
Yep.
I had lots of opportunities to shoot deer.
Do you remember, and I want to get into that, but I just want to ask you before we carry on, do you remember the first buck you shot, Scott?
Yeah, sure do. I could take you to every exact spot I was standing for every deer I've shot.
Because, I mean, both of you have got some nice deer around your house, and I've got a picture of a lot of yours at your camp, and I'd like to get a picture of yours as well, if I can, because I'd like to make that kind of the, you know, like an upcoming sort of a teaser for this, if you guys don't mind sharing that, or whatever, one is whatever, like one of your deer or whatever that might be special. But you remember that first one, eh?
Oh yeah, the first buck was it was just a spike, but that was the first one. Like I actually killed a buck, and it was way better than killing a doe for sure.
Yeah, and like not being a deer hunter, but I mean, when you're in high school and you first get your license, I mean, we're in the woods all the time, right? Because for me to do my thing with waterfowl, you kind of needed somebody to take you, and it wasn't as easy. We still did it, but you spent a lot more time in the woods, like hunting partridge and things like that.
Right.
And I mean, rarely did I ever see a deer, let alone see a buck. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I remember the first deer that I shot and the first buck that I shot, but I mean, what was that story behind your first buck?
Again, it was nothing special. I walking down a tote road and saw a deer's ass, basically, and it was looking back over my shoulder, and we kind of did peekaboo for a little bit, and once I realized that it had horns on its head, I Texas heart shot it.
Did you really?
Yep.
Yeah, you weren't going to let it get away.
No, sir. I was about ripping lead.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I Texas heart shot that, and it split its stomach and come out its brisket and jumped off the side of the tote road. And once again, I was fired up and went to the house and got Dad to give me a hand looking for it, because we have another predicament that is hard for a deer hunter, and I can't see blood.
Right.
So I had to get help.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know where it was. And anyway, we walked down there, and of course Dad was griping about how far it was back in the woods.
Yeah.
Why can't you shoot them out here on the road? And
It's funny you say that. I was talking to Mom about that today. But
yeah, and anyway, he just walked right to it, and it was laying there, and of course I was super excited and proceeded to gut it out, and of course Mom was there taking pictures or whatever, and that was my first deer, loaded on the back of a Toyota Tercel or Corolla, and tied it through the windows, and hey, I was headed to Quebec.
those are like, you think back on those times, and those are, you know, you look back at old pictures of guys having them hooked to their car and stuff like that, and those are such good, humble beginnings. You know what I mean? Like, you had more time then.
Way more.
Way more time.
Way more energy.
Yeah, way more energy to rip and go, and man, you still make good memories, and you still have good times. They're just a little different, but when you think back on those times, to be like, especially like Rowan's age right now, you know, just got a vehicle of his own, you know, out on his own there now. He's got some freedom. Like, you know, this next fall for him, I mean, he'll be down to school, but like, he's already putting a lot of miles on, right? Just ripping around and looking at places and being on the road, right? And you know, I certainly remember that, like, just being able to go where you wanted and do your own thing, and you had time. You're gonna go fishing or whatever you're doing. You got a vehicle,
had a plethora of time.
Yeah.
In fact, it's in a deer hunter's life, that is probably one of the most important times in it, because you tramp so much woods then, and you create this network of places where you can go later in your life. Geez, I walked that 20 years ago. Let's go check this out, Jason.
Yep.
Yeah, by the time you go back, it's all changed, or it's got to the point where you don't recognize it when you get there, but it's better habitat maybe.
Well, it's just one of those spots that you walk, that you tramp, that you know that 20 years ago had deer in it.
Yeah.
Yep. You know where those deer travel and where they travel on that piece of property, and where they tend to bed, and so on and so forth.
You can put that in your bank, and it just seems like useless wasted time until you get to our age, and and it's just part of your repertoire now, part of your turf.
So you used to walk a lot, and I mean, again, like when we're talking waterfowl, like we talk about sort of the evolution of how you hunt and how things are. Like I say it all the time to guys now. I'm like, it's a lot of gear, isn't it? We're loading that trailer full of stuff, and I'm like, I show them pictures. I'm like, this is the old truck that I used to run. We used to just load everything on there. Like I had a bunch. I think I maybe had 12 or 14 full bodies that were just, and there wasn't one that was the same brand, just whatever you could get. And, sort of humble beginnings, but like, and things were pretty Western then. You didn't always have the best gear or blinds, or didn't have blinds at all. And that's the way we hunted then. And things are different now. You
Army surplus camo and work boots, and
yeah.
It was a big thing to have a pair of Dunlop rubber boots. Like we had nothing.
Yeah, like there's a lot more gear. The industry has changed that way. So this is going to kind of be a two-part question that I want to know from you guys is like, how has deer hunting equipment changed, and like, compared to the way that you used to hunt then, has it been a revolution in the fact that now you're sort of over that gear and you like to hunt that way again? Or do you completely embrace the gear in the industry and, you're hunting out of stands or ground blinds or whatever? Like, how do you like to hunt, and what do you think of the way that the deer hunting industry as far as gear has come compared to the way that it used to be for you guys?
I'd have to say for me, I guess, there's a lot of technology that we have access to now, and that technology has definitely made us more efficient, more effective hunters. Like, with cell cams, we can know what's in the woods pretty well 24/7, within some reason. And is that a good thing? I don't know. In a way, you can be very selective, and also another way too, you can also be pretty darn dangerous too. Because you can take a deer just at any point in time, and that sometimes is too tempting for people, and that's changed a lot of how we hunt. And I don't know necessarily it is a good thing in a way, but it's kind of a double-edged sword. I feel as though some of the technology we have access to, but that's a whole different podcast talking about that sort of thing. But I think there's a lot of our gear now has made us pretty darn effective. Like we're probably better at what we do now than we ever used to be, and we're more efficient at what we do. And just for example, in the gun itself, it's calibers. Scott was talking about 32 calibers. 30-30s, them old 30 caliber straight walls, like them things. They call them a gangrene gun for a reason.
Yeah.
Because they wound a lot of deer. But now we're shooting some pretty high caliber, fast shooting, flat shooting guns, and and they're more effective. They're taking deer. Either you're clean miss or you usually kill the deer anyway. So.
And they're cheap.
They are cheap. Yeah.
I mean, when we were getting into deer hunting.
Yep.
A rifle was big money.
Yep.
So you weren't stepping out and buying a new rifle. Like
yep.
you had to borrow one,
yep.
or you had to have one in your house or
yep.
whatever, because they just weren't. You couldn't get these Savage package rifles for $5.99 or
yep.
whatever. They just weren't available.
Yep. So yeah, that's one way right there. Yeah. I guess that things have changed. I guess for the better in a way. So.
Yeah, the cell cams, I like them. They're hard to get away from. They actually prevented me from hunting this year because I got so entwined in watching those cell cams, and the cell cam wasn't working. And there was deer in there.
Yep.
And I should have been hunting. And so they prevented me from just going and hunting. And I see that a lot. People watch the cameras. Well, there's nothing on the camera. There's nothing on the camera, There's nothing there. There's nothing there. Well, they're there. They're just not standing in that 10-foot range of that camera.
Yeah.
There's a whole another 360 degrees there that those deer are moving and walking around. So I like them. I think they're, they're definitely efficient. They can bring out maybe not the greatest in people, for sure. It's a very tempting thing, right?
Yeah, to get a picture of a deer almost live and then go out and
Right.
shoot it. Like bang,
Yeah.
it comes on your phone,
Yeah.
then you run out there and shoot
Yeah.
it.
Any hour, right?
Any hour.
So, with a
Right.
day.
And I mean, listen, I don't care how anybody chooses to shoot a deer or how they shoot it. I think that's totally up to you. Like Jason said, that's a whole nother podcast. I watched a little YouTube clip, and I'm not sure where they were. I think it was Vermont, maybe. And the guy was still hunting, and he said it was illegal to check his cell cam while he was hunting within 24 hours. I thought that was quite interesting. I mean, that would be totally on your own ethics, but
Yep.
there's a ton of states that have banned them.
Yep.
The next thing that's going to come into play, which will probably be the biggest change, is thermal drones. So,
Yeah, I see that online now, like
Yep.
that
yeah.
drone deer recovery.
Yeah, that is, I mean, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean they're finding every deer, not just your deer,
Everyone.
you know.
Yeah. So, I mean, in the evolution of hunting, it was the 3-wheeler, the 4-wheeler, the side-by-side, better rifles, cell cams,
Yeah.
and now thermal drones.
Right. So, you know, you have to wonder at times, and it's no different. It's the hunting industry in general. I
Yeah.
mean, you look at spin and wing decoys. Like
Yep.
when they hit the market, that just completely devastated waterfowl. Now there's places that if you put one of them out, a duck won't come near you.
Yep.
But
Believe it.
but you know, for years, like Rowan's generation, like there'd be times when we'd be hunting and I wouldn't put one out, and he's like, "Isn't there ducks here?" I'm like, "Yeah." Well, geez, aren't we gonna put one of them out? I'm like, you know what? Like I had a couple of them when they first came out, but for years before they came out, we slayed ducks without them and without duck decoys.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So in that sense, talking about what I do, I want to kind of voice that question to you guys as well. Like, you can only do so much before the game adapts, right? Mm-hmm. The game adapts to us just like we were adapting to them. So, like, we used to kill them over plywood silhouettes. You probably can still do that now, but my trailer doesn't have those in them, right? Like,
Yep,
my
that's right.
decoys are like stuffers almost, but they're plastic. Like, they look very real, you know. And that was a marketing thing, right? Who's going to make the better product that's going to help you shoot more birds? Well, over time, genetically, they're going to learn that, hey, those are decoys. When I see that thing down there spinning, that's probably hunters. It's not going to do that for all of them, but they're going to adapt, right, at some point. So do you guys see that with deer? Like, you think about a deer walking through the woods. Okay, there's a camera. There's probably a tree stand, a ladder stand, or something close to this. Well, there's a bait pile or whatever. There must be somebody hunting here.
Bait pile right there.
Yeah,
That's your
baiting's
number
the
one
one.
thing right
Yeah.
there. Yep.
Right.
Yeah, we noticed we've kind of changed gears on how we hunt. I mean, we still bait, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with anybody who baits and shoots deer off bait, but we have definitely noticed a change in the way deer move based on bait.
Yep.
I mean, when you think about it from their perspective, I mean, think about it. Like, if you're walking through the woods and you see a stand or you see a pile of apples, like, if you were kind of a prey animal and you made your living on staying alive, basically, I mean, you're going to notice things like that, and you're not going to make mistakes, you know, or you're just not going to be around. So I feel like, and I'm not in the woods even close to as much as you guys are, but like when I think about how the majority of average hunters would set up, they'd have a trail cam, they'd have a tree stand somewhere, whether they build it or they put it up, and then they would have a pile of bait sitting there. And I think to myself, I wonder how many deer at this point, especially in areas where there's a lot of traffic and a lot of hunters, walk by stuff like that and go, I'm not going in there.
Yep.
The does will go in there, but I'm not going in there.
Yeah, you'll shoot young bucks there, and you'll catch the odd big buck there coming in there checking that, checking it, circling it for a doe. And he's in and out usually. You could get like one, especially during the rut, you get like 1-2 pictures of a deer, and he's gone. he's on something else. And until you get to the end of the season, then they get hungry and they're going to hit that bait. But they'll still be in the area. They're just checking that downwind. And one thing about a bait, that's a known food source that you can hunt over, that that deer are going to frequent, whether it be bucks, whether it be does. But that they're always going to approach that downwind 9 times out of 10. So you hunt that downwind. Like I talked to a couple different guys this fall and said, oh yeah, I know. Geez, I baited all fall. Never did shoot my deer off the bait. I shot clear the other side of the cut. And I said, what was it doing? Oh, it was just sort of sneaking around the back side of the cut. And I was like, it was winning the air bait. Mm. He says, and they're lucky enough to catch some, right?
See if you were there. Like the deer eats whether you've got those apples there or not. It's going to find a place somewhere to eat.
Yep.
Yep. I mean, so if
they have to eat 4 times a day.
Yeah.
They have to eat every about 4 hours.
So if he wants in there, or he thinks there might be does there, and he circles downwind and smells you there, I mean, most of the time they're not going to risk their life to go in there. They smell you.
Yeah.
Yep.
You're going to go someplace else.
They spend most of their day in a bed. So they'll eat 4 times a day, so every 4 to 6 hours. And when I say feed, they might just get up and browse around in a circle the size of this kitchen, lay back down. But they're going to feed heavy in the evening because they're crepuscular. And they're going to feed heavy in the night towards the morning.
Because they know it's safer to be nocturnal.
Right.
Yeah.
So there in itself, I mean, if it weren't for hunters, why would they do that? It's not like predators aren't out at night.
Right. Yeah, they've just changed their habit.
They've just and it's got to be seasonal too. Like you wonder.
It is for sure. Yeah.
You wonder if it's like, oh, we hear gunshots, or oh, it's getting to be that time of year. Like animals are obviously super adaptable.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know anything about deer hunting.
Well, I mean, you take September, you'll see all kinds of deer. Right around moose season.
Early October, remember all the deer I was seeing?
Early October.
Yep.
And it's all changes right around then. People start hitting the woods. That orange army hits the woods, and then stuff kind of goes haywire.
Yeah, that human intrusion.
Yeah.
And it's funny too, because it's almost like they, and maybe they do know, I don't know, but like there was, I shouldn't say several, but definitely a few fields that we were actively shooting in, that there was deer in that never left the field. They stayed in the field.
Yeah.
But it was, to me, it was almost like they were either curious, or they knew, or they just weren't scared of us. But I'll tell you right now, when a vehicle drove in the field and was going down the road that was behind us in the middle of the field, the ears went up and they run.
Yeah.
And I'm like, huh.
If they hear a four-wheeler.
Yep. Like, isn't that something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like just a vehicle. And we were in the field with decoys.
Yeah.
Calling and shooting and whatever. And they were there. And then as soon as that truck crested the hill and started slowing down or whatever, it was almost like they had that picture in their mind that, you know, their parents showed them, if you see this, you know, it's like when you're a kid, if you see the van stopping by the schoolyard, you run run inside, don't go talk to them. You know, that they identified that. We did nothing different. We weren't out of the blind. There wasn't any dogs running. We were literally just sitting there, and they all just and then to the woods. And I thought, they probably weren't far in the woods when we got here.
Yeah.
And we had the, you know, we're loud and obnoxious. We got the music going and whatever. We're setting our gear up and big lights, and, you know, we're making lots of noise, shooting and calling and stuff. And they were just like, oh, it's just a bunch of waterfowl hunters. They're definitely not after us, right? And probably couldn't hit us anyway. So, but when that friggin' vehicle came up through that field, they were like, whoop, to the woods. And I don't know, maybe it was somebody that had shot at them before. I don't know how, like, but for sure, when that vehicle came through the field, they were like, oh, get to the woods.
Yeah. It's almost like to know your demeanor. You know what you're up to.
Yeah.
You know, like, you don't have any intent on.
Yeah. Because the guys that were with me were like, do people not hunt deer here? I'm like, oh, they hunt deer here. Yeah, absolutely. It's funny that those...
More than you know.
Yeah, more than you know. Yeah. They're like, geez, funny that those ones aren't running in the woods. Like, geez, you got them trained or what? And then when that vehicle drove through the field, they were like, oh, geez, look at that. They're going away. I'm like, well, that's telling you something if you're paying attention.
Yeah.
So when you're younger, like, you don't have a whole bunch of equipment, and you're basically tramping ground, you're putting a lot of miles on, stuff like that. How's your style of hunting changed for you, Scott?
Well, I mean, so you're hitting it right on. As you get older and you start acquiring gear, your gear gets better. I mean, I hunted in a set of, I still got the the coveralls that I used from Walmart.
Yeah.
I mean, work boots and Walmart coveralls, like, froze to death.
Yeah.
Sitting in a stand, and it changed from people started having success baiting. So, you're always looking ahead and, okay, this guy's doing this. I'm gonna copy his formula. So you start baiting, lugging apples, lugging whatever you can, miles back in the woods, and sitting for hours and hours and hours, and pushing that time limit as far as you can. And it's just progressed for me the same as it has for waterfowl. I mean, when we started waterfowl hunting, we hunted on edges.
Oh, yeah.
And then we went to laying out in the middle of a potato field, which, to tell you the truth, sucked.
Yeah.
And kind of pushed me out of waterfowling. Yeah. And now you're back in edges. And so Jason and I we're still baiting, but I'll tell you what, we've had a lot of success teaming up and not being solitary. And that's, the past 6 or 7, 8 years of changing that style and working around off each other, winding deer and soft bumping them, and doing that has been very successful.
Yeah. So you made a good point there, and it's applicable to deer hunting too. Like, when we talked about waterfowl here, and we're going to take this as a whole for hunting here, big game hunting's always been a thing, but there's more hunters now than there's sort of ever been around here. Would you agree?
So I looked at those numbers, and there's not more. No, there's not more. There was definitely more big game hunters back in the 80s. Certainly back then. And what I'm doing, there's more, but you don't feel like there is for big game as much?
I don't think there is. You take our father's generation. They had big families, and they hunted for subsistence, more or less. They hunted for meat, and it was a good time. They took 2 or 3 days off, and they went to the woods and they shot whatever they seen.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of guys buying licenses where the actual hunters.
Hard
to
say.
But they enjoyed going to the woods and the camaraderie of it, right? It was just different. Like, they weren't going to bait, they weren't going to sit on baits. They were going to the woods and doing drives and, walking to the woods and sitting and, doing all the stuff that really we should be doing, in some ways, I feel, though.
Well, but here's the thing. When we talk about gear, and I'm going to land the plane here because this is the point I was trying to make. When we talk about gear, you made a good point about, like, how we used to hunt waterfowl. And, like, nowadays, look at the stuff I got out there.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of people have stuff like that, and good decoys and blinds and chairs and stuff like that, and good gear to wear, and they're not getting wet, and they can stay warm. And I think to myself, if our gear available was like that now, like, if we only had the gear now that we had then, and the birds were here, I don't think you'd have as many people doing it. I don't think people would suffer.
No, they wouldn't.
No, I don't. I think that people are, and this is new hunters now as a whole, are more successful due to the gear than they are the actual ability. Definitely. And maybe people won't agree with me. That's okay, but that's how I feel.
No, and so to land the plane even further, in the 80s, 85, 86, we shot 35,000 deer here. And it was on a steady decline ever since that. And it bottomed out in 2016, somewhere in there, at like 4,500. I mean, these numbers aren't super accurate. Might have been 5,500, but, it was a massive decrease in harvest, right? And we had a spike this year, somewhere around 10,000, like the most deer we've ever harvested since the 90s. And people are all super pumped about that. And I'd like to know, so we are more efficient. We have all this technology. If the deer population is so strong, why is that all we're shooting? Why isn't it 20, 30,000?
Yeah.
We're definitely way more. We have way more technology. Better gear. We have all the resources, cell phones, everything, cell cams, better guns, better footwear.
Yeah.
Why are we only shooting 10,000 deer here?
Yeah, you have to compare that with the population too, and correlate the deer kill with the population that was then compared to what it is now, and get a little bit of an idea. How many deer there was per hunter type thing, but that is spot on though, because I think probably we're a heck of a lot more selective than what they were back then.
I would agree. Yeah, we probably are.
Yeah. Well, and the thing
I just think that if we took the 45,000 hunters that are here and unleash them down in Indiana, I'm here to tell you, I don't think there'd be a deer left standing, because we're an efficient bunch of killers.
Yeah.
Because
we're not used to having deer.
Not used to having deer.
Yeah.
Like, we're a good bunch of hunters here, really.
100% all the way around. And when you think about it, like, the gear has to be what's doing it. It's not that we spend more time in the woods now, because I bet we spend less time in the woods, just like you said. We have somebody basically that's sitting in our stand for us all the time. You got a camera up there 24/7. That thing is active. If something walks by it, you're going to know about it. It's basically like paying somebody to sit in your stand and record what happens.
Yeah.
What's in the area.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. There's a lot of guys now. They're not using one cell cam. They're using several on one site.
Oh, geez. I mean, the whole culture of that, when I see it on TV, because I watch some deer hunting stuff, and it's like that's a thing. You go check. You got 100 cameras on some of these, right? Maybe more. I don't know. And they've got all the cards numbered, and they know they've got them all plotted out on the GPS, and you watch damn near the whole farm. You know what I mean? With all these cameras, you know where everything is all the time. So the technology is definitely making people more efficient, but is it making them better hunters?
No.
Nope. None whatsoever.
If you took that away and you said, okay, here you go, we're going to do this like they did it in the 80s, go at her, what would happen then?
Yep. Here's your 30-30 and the 32 special, boys. Go to the woods.
Well, if they took baiting away.
Oh, that'd be huge.
Yeah, it'd be massive.
Like if
it would be a huge change in hunting culture.
Yep.
Yeah. It would. The gear has made people more efficient, but I don't think it's making people better hunters.
No, I've been saying that for a few years. I said, we're not doing our kids any favors by using all this technology, and I'm guilty of it. No question.
It's hard to get away from.
It's hard because it gets them excited because they know that their friends are doing the same thing. There's like, so it's kind of, I don't know, you almost kind of force your hand. But, I did a lot of stuff with Hunter this year. I set him down on a stump. I said, look, I'm going to set you down on the stump. This is where I think the deer are going to be coming from. I'm going to circle. This is where I'm going to go. And I showed them all. I showed them where we're going, where I was going to go. And I made a circle. And I pushed deer to them. And when I bumped some deer to them, mind you, they're does. He come back and said, Dad, you told me right where them deer are going to come from. He says, how'd you know that? I said, well, because I've did this before.
Yeah.
And I said, I've moved deer here before. And I said, I just need someone to sit on that stump so that they're there when they run by them.
I just, technology is a great thing. And I mean, great minds have come up with this stuff and created it.
Yep.
But really, at the end of the day, like, is it making us better hunters? Like, you look at, again, I got to reference what I do, but you look at the evolution of decoys, what people used to hunt over.
Oh, yeah.
And, birds came into them, they shot them. You know what I mean?
We laid under burlap sacks.
Yeah. On the ground.
Yep.
On the ground.
Yep.
With plywood decoys.
Yep. Yeah, on the ground. Like,
that in the wet ryegrass, like
that was the culture here, and did it all the time as much as we could.
Yeah.
But now, if you get into waterfowl hunting, like Rowan's generation, like,
if you don't have a trailer full of decoys, then you're not hunting.
And a lot of people have a trailer and a whole bunch of decoys and a panel blind and like, it's not in ways it's not an evolution, it's a revolution. Like, those blinds are nothing new. Really, like, people have always had box blinds and whatever. They're just sort of manufactured that way.
Guys used to make them out of PVC pipe, and
Right, but it's
Pickle
not.
Boys and you, and there's
Yeah.
a whole bunch of them.
But it's not making people better hunters. It's
Yeah.
just making, in my opinion, all that stuff's just making it easier.
Yeah.
Like it's
So we went through a big fad here in hunting where it was speed and bows and the biggest buck and name your deer, and
that's a big thing in your culture, naming deer.
yeah,
Mhm.
it was, jury outdoors, and not to, everybody did it. The Crush with Lee and Tiffany, they all had all these big hog deer that had a million different names. And I'll tell you one group for me that's really brought it back around is those guys on the hunting public.
Yeah.
And I mean, those guys are hunting like they're hunting.
They're just hunting a mature buck. That's a good buck. That's a big buck. That's what we want. Like
Yeah.
you don't hear them say, "Oh, that's the old sticker
just-
buck." That was, that's
3.5, 4.5-year-old
Yeah.
buck, and they're
Yeah.
doing her the hard way on public ground with bows.
It's some of my favorite content.
it is.
Their
Oh,
stuff.
it's great.
And not that I don't enjoy the other stuff that's out there, like you say, Lee and Tiffany and things like that, but
It's
I
realistic.
yeah, I just really enjoy their stuff.
Yeah.
Hunt
And
the
they're
public.
they're the revolution in hunting right now
Yeah.
for big game hunters. And I mean, they throw a little waterfowl hunting in there, a little upland hunting, and they're a diverse group of guys that get together and they share it, and they work off one another's knowledge, and
Yeah.
they're very successful at it.
And and they're legitimately good hunters.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they don't have the fancy gear on. They're hunting in hoodies and gum rubber boots.
Yeah, and they don't often, I don't know if they never do go to private land very much.
randomly.
Once in a while, yeah.
Once in a
Depends
while.
on where they're hunting.
Yeah. And I mean,
It's-
sure
yeah.
you're gonna. I mean that
Yep.
if you get the invite, but they certainly don't base their model off that. I mean, it's the
No.
hunting public.
Yep.
And I mean, look at the ground they go and see. And they don't always get them.
Yep.
Not always, no, but they have encounters.
Yeah.
You can pretty much bet that they're going to run into something. And I mean, they've hunted hard states. Like Jason and I hunted New York, and I had no idea the culture of hunting in New York. Like there's a lot of hunters.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Those
Upstate's
are
pretty impressive.
Yeah, those were the most educated deer I have ever hunted in my life.
A lot of people, eh?
Yeah.
A lot of people in there.
I've
Yeah.
never seen deer cut my trail walking through the woods and run the opposite way. I've never had that happen. And I mean, they've been successful going to New York and spot and stalking mature bucks, upstate New York. And I mean, the Dakotas and down south, like Georgia. Georgia would be an incredibly hard state to hunt.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the Carolinas would be a tough one too, because
Yeah.
there's some hunting pressure in some of that country.
So you guys have, getting on that topic, that's a good segue into that. You guys have done some traveling now. And I mean, throughout your deer hunting career, you spent most of your time here at home or in the province.
Yep.
Basically. And now you've started to travel around a little more. You go to Indiana, gone to New York, things like that. Is that something that you feel that you're going to try to keep doing throughout your life? You like to travel a little more? Not that there's no place like home,
No.
really, but
No, there isn't, but there's also, we can extend our season quite a bit too by traveling, and we did it this fall, and that's fun. It's just a different, whether you kill a deer or not, doesn't really matter. You have
You're
a good
still
time,
hunting.
You're still hunting. You're in the woods.
Yeah.
You're lugging a rifle and you're targeting deer.
heck yeah.
That's how could you go wrong? Yeah,
Yep.
so
I agree.
And it's opportunity.
Yeah,
The
that's
more
right.
opportunity you give yourself, the more probability to success.
yeah, that's right.
So
And I mean, nobody wants to take the needle out of their arm. Not
No.
yet, anyways.
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
And it's the challenge, right? So go to a new state or go to a new province and dissect it and start trying to shoot bucks off it.
Yeah.
Well, and one thing's for sure, like I haven't traveled for big game, but when it comes to waterfowl, and I'm gonna throw big game in there because I can't think of probably any worse place to hunt for deer than New Brunswick and be consistently successful.
Yeah, the Maritimes are challenging.
The Maritimes are very challenging. Doesn't mean that there's not big bucks here, because
No,
there is, and
there
I
is,
mean,
yeah.
you guys get into them consistently. That doesn't have to be every year, but you've consistently legally shot some monsters. Like, to go other places and do it for you guys, like, it's only up from here. Coming from here makes you a better hunter. Like, that's the other thing. If you grew up in a place like Indiana, would you be the same hunter that you are growing up here?
You'd be a better archer.
Yeah.
Those guys grow up with bows in their hands, and I mean, going to Indiana deer hunting has made me 10 times a better archer. Has it made me a better deer hunter? I don't know about that, but
there's more opportunity there.
Way more opportunity. Yeah. So you can try all the stuff that you see on TV and have it work down there.
Yeah, there's more opportunity, so you got to be a little more calm, right? You see a buck walk by, you're like, well, there's 5 or 6 more behind it there somewhere, you know. Yeah. You see more than one buck in a field, or you might see several bucks a day, you know.
Yeah. Well, for us, it was everything that you'd read about the rut, everything that you dreamed about. We drove down there the first year and we're seeing it. Like the deer stand out in the open there.
Right.
They're more comfortable out in the middle of a field.
Yeah.
Tending their doe and chase. Like we just saw it all. It was the pinnacle.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because there's way more hunters there.
Oh, way more.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Every little piece of ground, every little corner would have someone hunting. It'd be rare to find a piece of ground where someone wasn't hunting.
But it's a different culture.
Yep.
So when we first started going down there, it's not a gun hunting culture down there. It's an archery culture. Yeah. So those guys level the playing field by changing their, maybe they started a crossbow. They call them wheelie bows, a compound bows, the next step, and then it's a recurve and then a longbow. And that's how they level the playing field.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it you do see quite a difference there too, even in the deer herd. Because I know,
absolutely.
The first year we went down there, they had a loud season, they called it. It was a shotgun basically.
It's like a straight walled cartridge season, like your 30-30s, your shotguns, pistols. Like it's
see, that's
100 yards and in.
That's my jam.
Yeah, and they had that for quite a few years, and then the rest was all bow hunting.
Yeah.
Well, they had such a big problem with deer, and so many complaints of deer. They said, "Well, we're going to open up for a week rifle hunting." And man, did they ever whack some deer that first year?
You're right.
There was deer that, like this, they hadn't seen, or they'd heard about, or they'd seen, and they were shooting them deer because they're able to get them right.
Yeah.
They just completely changed, and I think it has changed the deer herd down there.
Yeah.
Not necessarily good for big bucks, but there's still lots of young deer, and there's always going to be young deer because they grow fast down there. They grow a big rack quicker than they do here. They don't get the bodies. Like we put on our deer grow a big body here almost before they grow a rack, it seems. They don't require a big rack to survive, but they require a big body to make the winter. Down there, they don't have the winters, so they can grow a big rack. And they get the right minerals as well and the right feed.
Yeah, a lot of fruit trees, a lot of corn, a lot of soybean.
Yeah, a lot of protein there. But it's funny they wouldn't put on a big body. You'd think they would all that protein, but they don't.
It was crazy going down there the first time.
I bet.
Like it was to see deer. Like we would hunt all season just to see a buck.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
a buck. Like maybe that's a 4-point.
And when I first started traveling, I thought to myself, I thought specifically about you guys. I'm like, when I was in Alberta and I'd see them great big friggin' mule deer, because where I was, there was a lot of big mule deer, and I'm like, the boys would just love it here. Like every field, we'd be pulling in and there'd be great big mule deer. And then one time at the southern part of our range, there was pronghorn antelope running through the decoys, and I'm like, you just can't make this up. Like these things are real. You don't just see them on TV. And I thought, at the time, you guys, neither of you had traveled anywhere.
Yeah.
And once you started, I said, there we go. That's it. The pin's pulled.
Yeah.
You realize that it's not that big a deal to get out and go somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And once you start traveling, then you broaden your horizons a little bit. You learn more, you have to.
Yeah.
You want to stay in this. You can't. There's got to be more to it, and traveling and experiencing other places for what people have to offer. It's like you said earlier, like you're there and definitely you want to shoot something, but it's nice to just extend your season and
Oh,
still
yeah,
go,
absolutely.
right?
Yep.
Yep.
You know, like January here, I'm going to, well, we have our season till the 15th. But after that, I'm going to go see Julian for the last part of their season. Once we get done there, then February, I'll go back to Grand Manan.
Yep.
You know,
Yep. Yep.
don't like shutting her down. Where are we going in March? If
Yeah.
somebody's listening that's got a March season with birds, let me know. Hit me up in the DMs.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't intend on stopping any day soon.
Yeah.
And if there's deer there too and you can shoot those, let the boys know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I often think about, traveling south to deer hunt. As you know, they extend your season some more there, but biggest thing's the finances and time.
Oh, it's the
It's a struggle.
yeah, it's both that. So that's the biggest problem I find with hunting around here is the commitment to the amount of time and effort required to get a deer.
Yeah.
It's so much. It's
Yeah.
so extensive. It's so much, and you add a couple people onto that, it triples pretty quick. And,
Yeah.
and it makes it hard. And so I'm not so tied up on shooting mature bucks. I'm more tied up on how I want to shoot a deer, and I want to shoot it on my terms, and I want to get as close to being on level plane with that deer as I can get it. And I mean, one thing I accomplished this year was shooting a deer, a doe off the ground with my bow, and I was pretty satisfied with that this year. I didn't really feel like I had anything else to accomplish, which kind of took the wind out of my sails in early October. But we had opportunity. I had an opportunity to shoot deer in Nova Scotia.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Had opportunity to shoot deer in New Brunswick, but it wasn't on the terms that I wanted to do it.
Yeah, I often say, like, when we were in high school, there's not one of us sitting here at this table that wouldn't have crawled across the field of broken glass to stump bust a goose.
No,
Yep.
that's
Here to
right.
tell you right now,
Yep,
we'd have
no,
done
it's
it.
true.
And now, I'm like, I'd like to be able to call at it and have it
Yeah.
come into my decoys.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
way that I like to see them
That's right.
shot. So I totally get that. And I mean, that's just part of being a hunter, right?
Yeah.
Being in pursuit of that game. Like, sure, you could watch it on the cell camera and now, bing, oh, there's a deer out there, and then jump in the truck and drive down the road and sneak into the stand and shoot it. But at the end of the day, like, is that going to be your whole hunting life? Like, what's really in that besides it hanging on the wall? And if that's what it is, then it's not really hunting. You're just
No.
shooting.
Yeah. You're just
You
filling
know,
the freezer.
Yeah, you're
or,
just
you know,
you're just
yeah.
shooting at that point. And if that's what people want to do, then that's up to them. Absolutely,
Yeah.
Go ahead. I mean, but
I know Jason and I went to Nova Scotia pretty hungry.
Yeah.
we didn't have a high bar that we were looking for there this year, but
Oh, heck no.
I mean, we always, just to what you said, we always joke about, why couldn't there be one standing right on side the road here? The stereotypical gift pony right
Yeah.
here on side the road, that lets me drop my gun out of the truck and dump the box of shells and get it loaded. But at the end of the day, you're right. It wouldn't be satisfying. It'd be like, well, that's done. Okay. That didn't do it.
And and those
There's a little bit of suffering that has to happen.
Yeah.
those are times when you're kind of hard up,
Yeah.
when the sort of your field is empty and there's no deer even to look at or whatever. You're like, oh, geez, if something came out that had antlers, I'd probably shoot at it today.
Yeah.
But really, like, at the end of the day, for you guys, it's there's more to it than that.
Yeah.
It's the pursuit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
It
know,
is.
you've got some nice bucks, and I mean, at the end of the day, don't get me wrong, we're all killers, right?
Oh, absolutely.
We like
That's why we hunt. Right?
and we like to put game on the ground.
Yeah.
I mean,
As
but
Jose Ortega said, the purpose of hunting is to kill.
yeah,
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just walking in the woods.
Yep.
yeah, and you want to be but to shoot a deer the way that you want to do it, and to have it, like you say, on those level playing fields.
Yeah.
There's just more to it. It makes you feel better about it,
Yeah.
your accomplishment. You
Yeah.
always want to be striving to get better,
Yep.
and do it the way that you want to do it. And I think what ends up happening is we just get closer back to our roots.
It's pretty much where we're headed.
You can see the progression. Like, there's lots of times that I still drag that trailer, but not because I don't want to do things simple that day. It's because that's where all my stuff is. But as the season goes on, like the other day, the last time I hunted, I literally had just a little satchel of silhouettes and it's something to sit on. And I didn't even have a blind. I just sat back in the trees. I'm like, as the season goes on, you get closer and closer and closer to the way that things used to be. And I didn't really sit down and think about that or realize it till this year, till I was sitting there. Laura was there. It was Christmas morning, actually. We were sitting there. And I'm like, you've been with me a couple times this year. And I'm like, this is very different from, the production that's normally put on, isn't it? And she's like, yeah, it's pretty simple. Like, you just don't have as much gear and stuff like that. And I'm like, as the season goes on, that's kind of what you revert back to. You like that. You can keep things simple,
Yeah.
Back to the way that things were in your humble beginnings, eh?
Yeah.
Rather than going to the stand, you just grab your gun, you go, I'm going to walk from here to there today.
Yep.
See if I can get a deer. And me and Scott are going to go, and this is the way we're going to do it. And when you shoot a deer like that, and you bust one, and it comes running towards the other guy, and he shoots it, and you hear him shoot, and you know that it hit a deer, and you go running over. It's like, you're feral. Like, you're right back to the days,
Yeah.
Like,
You want to see me get excited? It's when the two of us get into a mess of deer.
yeah.
Like the raw emotion comes out, and like I come unhooked.
Yeah.
I stop functioning correctly. Like, it just comes out of me. I mean, we jumped deer this year, and I was hooping and hollering and on the radio, and it was standing there looking at me. And I just didn't clue in. It was right there.
Yeah.
All I wanted to do was chase it to him. I didn't want to shoot it.
It's true. I heard it. I was like, geez, something's going on over there.
Yeah.
But,
And at the end of the day, when that was all over and we come back out the truck, the stinking bucket ran by the truck.
Yeah.
right.
We were 100 yards apart from one another.
Yeah.
And when you're in the woods like that, and you're after deer, and you jump one, like you always remember Grant talking about, I jumped a deer, and when you jump it that it's a deer. Like, you can just tell the way that it goes.
Yeah.
Like, you just change. That adrenaline's like maxed right out, and your heart's just pounding, your eyes are wide, and you're just,
My mouth's open.
Yeah.
Because that helps me hear.
Yeah, you hear better.
Yeah.
I find myself now, I've got to almost take a second and regroup my thoughts, because I call it the coyote friggin' phase. You just get to chase. You just want to chase. All you want to do is just freaking get after it, but that's the wrong thing to do.
Yeah.
But you think, well, how can I circle around this? You just sit back and say, how can I get in front of this deer?
Yeah.
Or how can I put this over in front of Scott? Anyway, and you start scheming and thinking and think, if you know the woods at all, then it helps. But a lot of the places we go, we don't know the woods that well. And we're jumping in spots and surmising this is where a deer's going to come out. And two guys trying to freaking corner a deer, push one to each other, whether you wind bump it or what have you. We've been fairly successful. We darn near pulled it off the first day in Nova Scotia. Like I seen antler tips, and that deer was dead, and he didn't know it.
Yeah.
But he was some close to me, and I didn't have enough. I didn't have a clear shot, and I wasn't going to shoot at a buck and wound a buck. So he got by me, and I never got the opportunity. But he was there. We both had opportunity.
We
anyway
played it just like it was supposed to.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah.
And I mean, so talking about technology, that cell phone there right in front of you.
Yep.
To be able to pull up that map and look at a piece of ground and, okay, the wind's going this way. Who wants to do the bumping? Who wants to do the sneaking?
Yeah.
And hatch a plan there in about 15, 20 seconds
Yeah.
and then go execute it.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, while your adrenaline's just pounding, right? I mean, honestly, like, I just, like I said earlier, again, when we were out there Christmas Day, like, Laura's not a hunter at all. Never really spent any time hunting. Never, shot some guns, but, never been a hunter. Doesn't want to shoot anything, but happy to be out there.
Yep.
And she's like, as somebody from the outside looking in that's never really done this, and she's like, obviously I've been around you. She's like, you're almost a different person. Like, you can just see that this is what lights your fire. You know what I mean? This is where you're at your best. doing this, right? Like, you know, when there's birds in the air or whatever, your eyes are just wide and you're calling at them, and when they're getting closer, she's like, you know, I watched you get up every day for 2 months, the crack of crow's piss in the morning. Like, you obviously love doing this, right? And some of my favorite moments, even though I'm not much of a deer hunter, I do like to go a little bit, is like, I'm just scrolling back through here trying to find some of those videos, but like the videos of you guys, was it maybe last year where you got into some deer, and I'm like, you can't fake those videos. You just can't. Like, you're in the woods and you guys are hooping and hollering, you got a deer laying there and one guy's hollering in the woods, and you come out and there it is laying there, and the level of excitement and stuff, like, you know. So I guess that kind of reels me around to a tough question. And I mean, if somebody were to, I thought about it myself, and I mean, there's not maybe one real solid answer, but maybe there is for you as an individual, because everybody's an individual. But I guess what I was getting at is, what do you guys do it for? What do you hunt? What makes you a hunter? It's a tough question.
It is. I often think back, like my wife's there, she hunts for meat, and in a lot of ways, you know, I really do too, because we got a growing family. We're feeding them deer meat, and it's a good, healthy meat to eat. And well, you know, beef $7 a pound in the store. So why would we go buy beef when we can go to the woods and get our, you know, some lean, healthy meat? So in a way, that, you know, that's kind of, in a way, that's why I do it. But another way too is the enjoyment of it, and it's the thrill of the hunt, and the sort of the primitive aspect of it. And that's why I really enjoy getting back to sort of the roots of being on the ground, feet on the ground type thing, tramping through the woods, whether you're on snow or what you're on snow, certainly ups the ante for us. But it, you know, and trying to work with another guy or two and to get a deer, and that excitement doesn't matter if it's a great big buck or if it's a spike. Well, you know, it's still exciting, and it's a memorable time, and those memories, I guess, making those memories and getting some deer meat while you're at it, can't beat that.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me it's the primitive aspect. I mean, not to romanticize it in any way, but to participate in nature in its purest form is to be out there being the apex predator that we are. And I think it's a very simple place to be, is in the woods and performing in that way. Yeah. I mean, it's very natural. There's no social qualms out there. It's everything out there is fighting to survive, and you're at the top of it, and you're going into their element, and attacking them. And it's kind of that for me. I mean, yes, I do it for the meat. Our family lives off venison year round. Then there's another aspect of it. I mean, I love to be in a deer camp. I absolutely love deer camp.
Yeah, you like the social aspect?
Yeah, I like the social aspect, the heritage of it, all of it. And the older, shittier the camp is, the better I like it. So
there's a little bit of suffering there normally involved in some of those older camps, and we've seen that this year. It was bloody cold.
That Nova Scotia camp's one of my favorite, because you can feel the walls alive in that place.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I just was thinking about today, Scott, was you were telling me that time you went up that camp up there with Bob, and there was all those trails, and they had them all named, and you had, you know, the history and the culture there. Yeah, you know, was so rich.
Oh man, that was that was pretty neat.
Yeah,
I mean, to go up there, and so that was up in Everett, and Jason had talked about Riley Brook, and that's basically Riley Brook, I believe. Yeah, and we had to cross the Tobic River, and my father-in-law invited me up there.
Yeah,
and we crossed the Tobic River with a tractor, and across this field, and came to this old log camp set back on a couple 100 acres, and it was like hand-built log camp. And inside of it, I got digging around, and there was a crew of guys there that had gone past their prime of hunting and were there just to get away and be alone. And I found the journal.
Because that's what they've always done.
Right. And I found the journal of this camp where the old guy, Harry Ebbett, had basically wrote in it and kept score and tally of every deer shot and every deer seen.
Yeah.
And I read that journal that night.
Yeah.
And slept with my eyes wide open.
Yeah.
Until the crack of crow's piss. And I come out ready to go, had about 4 cups of coffee, and stood there waiting for somebody to tell me where to go. And none of them left the camp. And I was like, so what's the deal here, boys? Like, what are we doing? And they all kind of looked at me. And I was like, so do you guys have spots? Like, where should I not go? Where should I go? And it was like, you can go wherever you want. And I said, really? I said, yeah, just do what you want.
Yeah.
So I did. And I'd come back after dark. I'd walked all day. I'd found these trails. And, you know, the magpies were out. Not the magpies, but the
Gray Jay. Yeah.
Gray Jays, yeah. And, man, like, she was old school. And they thought I was lost. They were out looking for me.
Yeah.
When I walked back in. And, like, when I say looking for me, they were out around the camp within 100 yards, hollering when I walked back up the driveway. Here he is, Jesus. He's over here, Bob. He's all right. He's right here. And, you know.
Mother of God, nobody goes past where you can see the camp.
Anyway, I mean, I found an old boiling hole. I jumped deer. I wasn't even interested in shooting a deer. I was just more interested in seeing the country. But
Yeah.
I got back, and then they started talking because that passion had come back into the camp, right? And
Yeah.
they started talking about Harry Ebbett and how proud he would have been of me because he said first thing in the morning he kicked your ass outside with a piece of toast and a hard-boiled egg and said don't come back till dark. And he said we'd all go hide up over the hill or down in the barn or wherever because he wanted to keep tally for his book, right?
Yeah. He wanted somebody to shoot something.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. That's
Anyway,
funny.
it was a good time, and Bob ended up shooting a deer there that time.
Yeah. Right beside the camp.
Right
didn't he?
beside the camp, he had to stand just up on the hill. You could walk back to the camp and say, "Seen anything, Bob?" And he'd turn around and say, "Not yet, no." And he shot a deer right there.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, that culture is what keeps it alive.
Yeah.
And when you're younger, when you're like Rowan's age, you can't appreciate it. It's not that you don't. You can't appreciate that culture.
No, you can't.
You can't appreciate it because you're so focused on the numbers and piling them up. And again, don't get me wrong, that's what I like to do that too. But as you mature and gain a little wisdom, you realize that there's more to it than that, right? And you guys are obviously seeing that because, you know, you're getting your kids into it. You know, they're enjoying it. You're seeing that side of things and helping them to have a good experience out in the woods and things like that. But one of the things that I wanted to say about being a hunter is it doesn't matter like what you do now, whether you're the biggest any hunter in the whole wide world. You may not want to accept it, but we're all descendants of hunters.
Absolutely.
People that hunted and worked the land and foraged on the land and killed and hunted animals.
Yep.
And, you know, it wasn't that long ago that people did that solely, you know, and they still do it up north. I mean, people are still sustenance hunters, but I have to think that when they went out in those hunting parties like years ago that, you know, the culture there was still the same as it is now in a way. You know,
I'm sure there'd be some camaraderie there, especially when they made it harvest or took an animal.
Big time, yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
there was a huge increase when those guys come back from the war.
Yep.
In hunting, in big game hunting, in those deer camps, and that's when that camp started. Was right after the war.
It's interesting.
Yeah, because they were all used to being together, and they sort of needed something to do and felt the need to belong. And you know, we've kind of gotten away from that. Technology has made it so we don't have to gather as much. And even doing things like this is great. Like, I love doing these podcasts and sitting here talking about this stuff and having these conversations, because that's all this is, right? We're just reminiscing a little bit, talking a little bit about possibly what used to be, the way things are now, currently, what you're into, tons of different topics. But at the end of the day, even doing this stuff is important, right?
Yeah.
We get to sit and talk.
Well,
about
we
this.
don't write anymore, right?
we don't.
We don't keep journals. We aren't writers anymore.
No. So in a way, I mean, when you are a writer and you think about it and you sit down and you read an article, it's not, I walked up over the hill and there was a deer and I shot it. Like, they spend an amount of time talking about, again, what it smelled like, what the leaves were like, what the woods were like. They're painting that picture. Yeah. They're
how Harry snored all night.
They're the invisible. they're basically the invisible Bob Ross telling you
That's right.
what it was like, so you can feel and live that experience with them, right?
Yeah.
So, I like that about deer hunting, that there's that history, and you get to those camps, and when you get older, you can appreciate those things.
Gosh. I was only there once, and I mean, it was just an old school. It's the oldest school deer camp I've ever been in.
Yeah, and there's something to be said for that.
I mean, it was right. You mentioned Men of the Autumn Woods.
Yeah,
that's when the whole thing started.
Yeah,
it was when they were doing that. I mean, it just was phenomenal.
Yeah,
and not that those guys didn't appreciate it. They'd just grown up in it.
Yeah,
they're a whole nother generation from us, right? So.
Yeah, in our father's generation, there's some of that, but our generation, there's not nearly as much.
No, there's not.
And if it's important to us now, we're going to be the ones that are going to carry that on.
Yeah.
Because it goes in waves, I feel.
Yeah, it does.
It'll come back if we make it.
Yeah, it will.
There seems to be an influx of young deer hunters right now. It's surprising. Like, it's such a hard thing right now to get a Rowan or a Hunter McLean interested in deer hunting around here.
Yeah, hunting in general.
Hunting in general, but specifically deer hunting. But yeah, I mean, there's partridge and stuff, and you can go out and do that, but deer is a whole nother endeavor here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a game of patience. You go waterfowl hunting, you can usually get some action pretty well every time you go.
Yeah.
Whereas you go deer hunting, heck, you might not even see a deer for a week. It is possible.
Yep.
So, that's not a lot of action for a young fella to get into. So
very true.
Yeah. I feel for that generation around here.
Yeah.
We kind of caught the tail end of it.
We did.
We had our teeth cut. If you were around it at all in the 80s, I mean, we were born in 82, so we come through the peak of deer hunting in New Brunswick growing up.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's changed a lot. And, I feel as though, I know our forestry that's a whole different topic. That's a big issue. But certainly if our winters continue to be like they were last winter, and what this one's shaping up to be, we're going to have some more deer next year. And
absolutely,
the numbers keep on getting better. We're efficient hunters here. I feel as though we could potentially, have a good deer herd next fall, and there'd be just as many deer killed next fall as there was this fall, maybe even more.
Yeah.
So it's a very real possibility.
If there was any advice I could convey to the younger generation coming up, it would be that hunting isn't a competition amongst other hunters.
Yep.
It's a competition to yourself and the deer. And it should be that way. When we're out there participating in the sport, be respectful to your fellow hunters, and you know what? Have a conversation with them, because God knows what they saw or are willing to tell you.
Yeah, you're right.
And jump in the woods with 2 or 3 people. Don't make it a solitary endeavor where you just sit in the cold by yourself, trying to see a deer.
Watch an old apple bait.
Yeah. Grab 3 or 4 of your fellas and go attack a piece of woods.
Yeah.
Go into it and make it like waterfowl, where it's a group of you. It doesn't have to be what you think it should be.
what it's evolved into.
Right.
Yep, that's right. And you can be successful. Doesn't
Very
mean,
successful.
you know, and it's darn exciting.
Mhm.
And I feel as though, you know, it's just as we started out with, you know, it's like, you know, Scott shot a buck. We're in the woods together. It's like I shot a buck. You
Absolutely.
know, we both have that excitement. Mind you, I didn't squeeze the trigger, but that's just you know, it's both very exciting for both of us, right? You know, to take that deer. So
Yeah.
and that's something that a lot of people are overlooking.
To me, to do it the way that you were just talking about, like, that's the way I would want to do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, I like to walk.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to have. There's times where we could have a couple more people,
Oh yeah.
and it would be better.
Yeah.
Because I like to hunt with a shotgun.
Oh, that's
So-
prime hunting for shotgun.
You could have killed that one this year easy with
Yeah.
a shotgun.
Yeah.
Because you could have dusted them.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, the majority of the deer that I've shot have been with a shotgun
Yeah.
or a bow,
Yeah.
you know, which is way more comfortable. I can't
Yeah.
shoot a rifle.
Yeah. Yeah. You like to squeeze trigger. Point and shoot.
I have to think about it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
No, she's not a competition. We're not out competing with one another. We're all competing against the deer. So last time I checked, deer didn't have tattoos with names on them.
Yeah,
so
they don't. That ain't your deer until he's on your tags on him, really.
yeah, and when somebody else gets it, be happy for them.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
You know, that's the only thing I would give them for advice. I think it's important to, and it's not an easy mindset to get out of. I was very protective over spots, and you know, you try to manage spots and baits, and it's a hard thing to let people in,
me too.
but it's far more rewarding.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, with what I do, it's competitive in a way, but certainly I've definitely adopted what you just said a lot more in the past 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And it's much better to work together with guys. You see guys looking at a field or whatever, you can just go talk to them, you know.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we used to sleep in fields,
Oh yeah.
be there days in advance at times.
Yeah.
One time, 5 days in advance.
Holding fields.
Yeah. And we don't do that anymore. I haven't slept in a field in years.
Yeah.
We don't do it anymore. There's some guys that will not, you know, they can't be a team, or that maybe not a team, or they just, what's the word I'm looking for? Amicable, I guess, and you know, want to work together. But there's a lot of guys that do, and a lot of guys that, I mean, I'm doing this every day, and a lot of guys that I work together with, you know, and lots of times where I'm like, you know, this guy, and run into him, he doesn't have a spot to go, and I'm like, well, you could go here, which is maybe the only spot I have at times. And we'll find someplace else.
Yeah.
There's more of me on the road than there is of you.
Yeah.
And
I
we
know
don't-
that was one of the other things that drove me away from waterfowl hunting.
Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
it just got to be that. It just
Yeah.
got to be a fight, like
Yeah,
a legitimate, like almost fight
yeah,
in the mornings.
yeah, yeah. And there's still, you know, there's the odd time. Didn't happen this year, but it did last year. A few times guys pulled in. And I actually, no, I'm lying to you. It did happen once this year. And, you know, I did let those guys hunt with us, but I knew one of them. I didn't know the other two guys. And that for me, that's, I don't care to do that. And it's not because I'm trying to be ignorant. It's because I don't know those people.
All right, and you're shooting cons.
Yeah, and waterfowl is dangerous.
Yeah.
You know?
It is.
So, you know, most times we'll be like, hey, you know, you could go to this spot. This is another spot that we had. But a lot of times it's like 6:30 in the morning and daylight is at 7, right? We're parking our trucks and people are coming in. But I'll tell you right now, I mean, I've done that a lot. And, you know, that probably doesn't get, you know, posted about. I know it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
But there's been plenty of times where it's been like, I've got one spot and somebody comes along and looking at it too, that's a local, then I'm like, yeah, you guys go ahead. We'll find something else, you know. And it leaves us in a bad spot, but you know, you're trying to get along with people, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And trying to do the right thing, and you hope that, you know, that's sort of the pay it forward thing where you buy somebody's coffee that's behind you in the line and hope that maybe they pass that on, right? And whether they do or don't, I don't know, but that's kind of the way we run things now. We try to get along with everybody.
Yeah.
You know, it's competitive, but regardless, you know, we try to get along with everybody.
Yeah.
And some guys you just can't, you know, but
Yeah.
most,
Which is fine. That's
most
people like
people are
that.
pretty good.
yeah.
But- Anything else, guys?
No, I think that was a good chat.
I think so too. I really appreciate you guys coming on here and sharing a little bit about, you know, what your passion is and the time you like to spend in the woods and what you like to do when you're out there. I'm not a deer hunter, you know.
Not enough action for you. Well, they're done too.
Maybe that's the sound that's going to end her right there.
Yeah.
But you know, I definitely have an appreciation for anybody that puts the time and effort into it like you guys do. So, you know, there may be a chance to do another part to this to talk about something that's specific if you guys want to, but I think this is kind of covered who you guys are and how you like to do it. And after you listen to it, you might think of things, but certainly sit down with you again
Yeah.
at some point.
Yeah. Certainly. It's fun. Appreciate the invite.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on, boys.
Thanks, man.